Welcome back to the Win with Dice podcast, a podcast featuring members of the Win with Dice team. I'm Calvin, and I'm joined here by Ramon.
Hey guys, welcome to the Win with Dice podcast. Podcast all about tabletop RPGs, running them, playing them. Calvin and I are DMs, and we play each other's games as well as several other games. And we just like to talk about our experience, so you guys can see that the other side of the screen isn't so scary and want to jump behind it. Relieve your forever DM, or introduce your plucky new venturing friends to a world of pain and suffering and
Adventure.
and adventure. Oh, sorry, the adventure part. Yes, obviously, and the glory of killing your poor NPCs that you spent hours planning for them to just crit.
Trounce.
But anyway, yeah, that's basically the show, folks.
Yeah, we take a casual approach to running RPG games, so hopefully, you can give it a try and it doesn't seem so scary. Now, we've got a Pathfinder 2E game we want to talk about today, but before we get into that, we have to get into the most important part of the show, the weekly Win with Dice tip of the week. Wait, the Win with Dice weekly GM tip of the week, and various other adjectives in there. Ramon, take it away.
Yes, the Win with Dice weekly GM tip of the week, brought to you by Ramon, but stolen from Calvin. All right, let's go, folks. All right, guys. So the tip of the week for this week is to not be afraid to share information to one player at the table. Have like a secret conversation, or just give them a little bit more information than the rest of the party. I think it's kind of cool. It happened in the Pathfinder recap we're going to do for Tim's game. Something secret happened between Calvin's character and he talked to some higher powers, and we have no clue what happened. We just reference it as some spooky shit. So spooky shit happened with Calvin's character, and I'm super intrigued. The whole we're playing online, but essentially the whole table was super intrigued of like what actually transpired, and we don't know. But we only got to hear like the reactions, because I think they were messaging on Discord, like separately in a separate channel. Mm-hmm. So or DM. Right, so don't be afraid to do that. I think it's super cool. In real life, you don't know what the other person knows, right? I think it's kind of cool, and having different perspectives and stuff will make a really fun game. It also helps like the verisimilitude, right? Like, although if done incorrectly, could just raise lots of suspicion.
Also, that's part of the fun.
Yeah.
I was kind of thinking back to in Critical Role, which I always reference back to because it's one of my favorite things. Something that often happens, usually with insight checks, is when they're playing in person, Matt will get up from the table, walk over to the other person, and specifically whisper to them about something that is going on, either with whatever they noticed from an NPC, or it could also have to do with something that's to do like specifically with their character. I think someone had something like that recently in the last couple episodes, just something that they specifically would know and be aware of, because then it gives the player a chance to like react to that in a way that like they then have to communicate that information to the rest of the team. Like if the whole team knows you did a perception check and you saw some secret thing, like the whole team's going to react to that. But if you specifically saw it, then you have to choose how to communicate that with people, and it helps people stay in character.
Yeah, and it makes the decision-making process from, like, what is the team going to do to be, like, what am I going to do with this information, right? Mm-hmm. So it can help you get into your character's head a little bit better. Ways you can do this is, a simple note pass to a player. Although, if you're not known to pass notes to your players, it might be suspicious. You could layer in, like, some fake notes, like, hey, how you doing? This is your friendly GM. Just look like you're reading this and think it's important. Right,
that is fun. I want to try
right
that.
Yeah, right. Or if you're playing online, the side DM to a player. I've also done this when some player, if a player has like a specific language, and they're trying to carry the conversation, so I'll whip up my phone and just start messaging them directly for playing in person. So that's the way that we have the conversation. So it's like I would text them the response, And it's up to the player who has the language to reiterate that to the group. So it's kind of cool. I like it, and definitely fun if you could pull it off, and could change up lots of role-playing scenarios with your party, especially if you have like a leader type player who just like wants to be, or like somebody who wants to be in the like involved with everything all the time. It's good to kind of get around that person a little bit. let other people take the limelight. Not to say that person is bad. Probably really good people, but they're hyped, and sometimes you want to get other people hype. But yeah, that's your weekly GM tip of the week. Brought to you by both of us, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, we could talk about the specific instance that came up in this game as we get into the recap. Speaking of, let's get into this recap. So, of course, we've talked about this game a bunch of times on here. Our friend Tim's been taking us through the Lost Mine of Phandelver adventure for D&D 5th edition, but been converted into Pathfinder 2nd edition. Which I don't know if that messes with some of the rewards and stuff, but so far they seem alright to me.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't really tell. It seems pretty awesome. I think it might be skewed a little bit like higher in some aspects and lower in some aspects, but I feel like it all works out anyway. So there you go.
Yeah, for the most part. We still need to get a magic shield for Fallum, but
that's true. It's true.
Other than that, I think it works out right. So when we last left off, and our characters include, so I have a druid by the name of Teeks. We have a ranger by the name of Bren, a fighter by the name of Fallum, a barbarian by the name of Kavo, and Ramon's wizard, his cowboy wizard, by the name of Silrona, along with Deputy, his rat familiar. So when we initially started, it was just Teeks and Bren. They were hired to take this guy Gundren. They were hired to help, just help him do some transporting, but he got kidnapped by some goblins, and there was a whole situation where we had to rescue some people, recruit some people, help out a small town that was being attacked by a gang, all sorts of fun stuff. But it eventually led to us recovering this dwarf Gundren, and he gave us this map to what he was looking for in the first place, this ancient wave echo cave with many resources and forges and a whole lot of history behind it. So, in the last couple of sessions was essentially us getting to Wave Echo Cave and making our way through it. We first took Gundren back to town, and we did some catching up there with his friend Sildar, who worked for him. Just let him know everything that was going on. Checked in with the mayor, who we were suspicious of, just to see what he was doing. And then when you're in town, you pick up some stuff, you buy some things. You mend your weapons, you get new gear, you buy a whole bunch of potions. You wish you bought more. And then after that, we headed to the Wave Echo Cave, which is this very large map, essentially. And of course, we're playing on Roll20, so Tim's been revealing like pieces of it as we've been going, which has been interesting and fun because we see how much we get to see how much we've seen of the map, and then how much there is left. And that's always an experience.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's super cool. And I'm always on the person to like switch between maps. Like if there's a fight, then like you go to the map fight, but then you switch back to like maybe some other stock image or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. But having the map fully realized, right? And we're filling it in as we go, or Tim's revealing it as we go. Really like. I don't know. It's like you ever like do something you don't really know when the end is, but this gets very tangible, right? It's like we know we've explored half of this place because we've like shown half of the map, right? I think it's a cool way to kind of gauge like how we're progressing, how we're doing, and it's also kind of exciting because it like for us as players, we're like, oh my god, there's so much space. What the hell's in here, right?
Yeah.
So I think I might start like doing the entire map and just letting people just kind of muck around in it.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking of doing something similar, but in Foundry, but then I don't really get it's sort of a trade-off in a way, because I think Foundry has the better lighting tools. But then you don't get that sense of you as the player seeing how big the space is. You can only see literally what your character can see. I don't think you can see the entirety of it, or maybe you can if you zoom all the way out. You can see like the black square or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just really loved that experience of like at the end of the session, you zoom all the way out and it's like, oh, we've only been through this part, and there's a whole other thing that's much larger than what we've already covered.
I know. I really want one day in my DMing career to just have a mega dungeon and run that thing. Just make just this huge map and just say, here's where you start. Good luck. And just let them, just muck around and do a bunch of stuff. I think that'd be super cool. And it's like, super old school, kind of just dungeon delvers, kicking down doors, beating up monsters, getting some loot, going back to the surface, trying to deal with that kind of shit. And not a lot of politics and stuff, just like, dealing with that stuff, the contained stuff. I like it.
Telling you, man, you gotta do it in Foundry. It's the only way.
True.
So yeah, we enter the Wave Echo Cave, and once we get in there, after everyone gets their stuff, Cavo upgraded his pickaxe, Teeks helped Fallon mend a weapon, Bren was getting potions and sold a bear pelt that he had. I don't remember if Silverona was around at the time. I don't think so.
No. Silverona doesn't have any. I don't remember last time Silverona ever was in town. Unfortunately, I'm not able to play in all of the sessions, so my character pops in and out from cowboy space.
Yeah, that's essentially what it is. So after, and I guess because my character is the team mom now, so she made sure everyone had water skins and food for some reason. But eventually, we headed on a path leading out of town. We went off that path. After a bit of climbing and a bit of journeying, we came to essentially a hole in the ground near the roots of a large tree. It led through a dark tunnel and into a chamber that is within the Wave Echo Cave. We would discover later that the main entrance had been blocked off by a tunnel collapse. Unfortunately, also while in there, we found one of Gundren's brothers, one of his two brothers, those being Nundro and Thardrin. We found the body of Thardrin with a stab in his neck, sort of laying in the first chamber that we came across. No sign of Nundro, at least not yet. Gundren wanted to stay behind and bury his brother properly, but he gave us the task of continuing on and finding the Black Spider, this enigmatic figure who's sort of been in and out as we've been all around Phandelver that we've heard a few occasional things about. There was a pit ahead of us with a rope, so we climbed down. Unfortunately, Bren, the fighter who was the last to climb down, the rope snapped when he started climbing. Luckily, Fallon was able to catch him, although Bren just kind of sprained his ankle a bit. And then we were at the point where we started to do some exploring. This was like the first major path split, or the first path split at all, I should say, because there were two different tunnels we could have gone down. Even though Cavo has some like mining knowledge, it didn't really seem like either of the junctions were particularly important, but we could hear some scuffling in the eastern tunnel. So we headed off in that direction. There was some debate over whether we should use a torch, but if we didn't use it, we couldn't see because no one has dark vision. We have low light vision, but no dark vision. So we headed on to another chamber. We got attacked by some sturges, which are really populous around here. So we fought our way through those.
I feel like we fight sturges like every other fight. It's just like there's like a gaggle of sturges like always around us.
They're like the flies of this area.
Like legitimately, like it's crazy. There's so many sturges. You gotta eradicate them, man. Oh my god.
Yeah, it was some flailing on my part, but between Fallon and Kava, we made pretty quick work of them. There was a moment where Teeks tried to throw a javelin and it missed and it nearly hit Bren, and then Bren tried to use that javelin and it missed and nearly hit Teeks.
Oh man, too funny.
But after we got through the Sturges, we got to, I think, near like the beginning of, or like the original entrance, because Cabo could tell there was a lot of foot traffic around that area, even though there was no light with our inspection. But what we did manage to find was a room with a bunch of skeletons that Falm had gone into first. As long as there was another room that just was like seemed like an office, but we were kind of mostly concerned with the skeletons and their bows, and just Falm being under this barrage of arrows. Fortunately, he's great at using his shield. And just as those skeletons were defeated, that is when Silrona reappeared from the cowboy dimension that he disappears to whenever Ramon can't make it to a game.
Yeah. So, and at that moment, we immediately split the party. I'm pretty sure that was.
You sure did. I think it's you. I think you're the bad influence.
I'm the limiting factor, right? Like it's like, I don't know. It's we have like 5 people, right, in our party. So I was just like, everyone was going one way, and I was like, I guess I could just go this way, and then immediately just drag Cavo. Cavo just magnetized towards my intentions, and then we're back to being stealth team and disguise team again.
I guess. So Silrona and Cavo went one way, Falm and Bren went the other. Teeks was trying to keep the party together, which just led to her like being annoyed and walking off.
It was very funny that nobody listened to you. It was very, very, very in character. I was like, can't tell me what to do, Mom.
She's just trying to help everyone, and they all just leave. So,
yeah,
and essentially it was like us going in multiple different directions.
Which at this point, I'm pretty sure Tim is an expert at doing, splitting the party, which is like next level GM maneuver to manage a split party. And every time he does it, I never feel like like I'm like my character or my situation isn't getting too much attention. I think that like everybody's pretty engrossed in what the other person's doing, so it's kind of just like a nice break to just be like, well, I guess I could just watch this unfold and not be involved with the ramifications.
Yeah, it was a good call to like do that by initiative order, because then you don't it just feels like turns. It doesn't feel like you're waiting for something else to finish happening before you can do something.
Yeah, super secret GM tip second GM tip of the week, folks. If you want to split your party, make them all roll initiative and then let them figure it out. You do actions in that order because it honestly it works. So
yeah, definitely. You can use initiative for more than just combat stuff, especially in Pathfinder 2, where it encourages you to use other stats for initiative like stealth. You can definitely make use of that. So Falm and Bren, they came across sort of a widening in the tunnel they were exploring. Silrona and Cavo came up to a split in their tunnel and a door ahead of them. And then Teeks, who was exploring on her own, eventually her tunnel looped back around and connected with the path that Silrona and Cavo were on, as well as another dead end. So Falm and Bren, they're in a room full of like these plants and mushrooms that were like large and phosphorescent and giving off some kinds of gas. Silrona and Cavo, eventually joined by Teeks, they came across a pack of ghouls, which they took out pretty quickly. Teeks eventually arrived after hearing the sounds of combat. And they came up to a locked door that Cavo pretty quickly smashed through. I don't know if we went much further than that, because Falm and Bren, as they were dealing with this, they were trying to avoid breathing in that gas. There wasn't really much in the Silrona, Cavo, Teeks team side, so we all eventually reassembled in front of the mushroom room, which we discovered, of course, was poisonous. It would linger in the air for a while and it could be potentially painful. So, of course, the plan we came up with was just running through really fast.
Yeah, which I think everyone else did perfectly fine, except for the weak wizard with the weak constitution.
Who wanted to fireball it at first.
Yeah, I wanted to produce flame, and Tim's like, yeah, it's too moist in here, it's not gonna work, fam. I was like, oh, sans. I'll just do that. I'll just run through. Which, I think I took some poison damage, which was okay because I basically stand in the back most fights, and if something's, trying to come at me, I'm dead anyway. So
yeah, by that time it's already over.
It's already over. There's too many thick boys in the way. If they made it through all the thick boys, then it's like, man, it's over.
So yeah, we made it through there. We found there were some skeletal remains on the ground. There were some doorways that looked like they were dwarf-sized, which sort of aligns with what we knew of this place. As well as the skeletons looking like they may be from those ancient battles over this location that we had heard about, from like orcs raiding it and things like that. We came across another door, which Ren easily smashed through with the axe that's made specifically for smashing wood. And as Phalum stepped into the room, a wraith appeared, who said that the treasure inside is mine alone, and then attacked. And that was sort of the end of that first session.
Yeah, which was a cool cliffhanger to leave it at. Like, we just instantly, like, oh man, it was like as soon as we jumped into the next one, we're all geared up to fight that wraith. But we're also pretty scared because we're like, oh god, a ghost!
Yeah, last time we faced a ghost, it was that banshee, and like she just wanted a specific thing, so it didn't turn out to be a fight.
But busting ghosts is hard apparently. It wasn't too long of a combat, but it was against one creature, and it was like a little tough for everybody, I think. I mean, especially all of our melee boys, our thick boys, like they because of like the damage resistance, and the more damage resistance if like you aren't using a magical weapon, right? So yeah,
wraiths are resistant to like physical normal weapons, extremely resistant to those, and they're resistant to basically every damage. It's a thing that's like, it's resistant to everything. It's faster to list the things it's not resistant to.
Yeah, right. So it was like healing, force, and ghost touch, right? So look at your cowboys here with the magic missile, which if I haven't mentioned it before on any of the other recaps, my sorcerer, he just focuses on magic missiles. He's a magic missile wizard, and all he does is use magic missile for the most part. That's like his gimmick, because I was like, that's like shooting a gun, right? It's like a magic gun. Cowboys, yes. Magic missile, let's go.
Your wand is basically a pistol, a revolver.
Yeah. I appreciate him humoring me and just making all of my equipment just gun. The way I describe doing stuff is just like, yes, I have a gun. It's not actually a gun, but it shoots magic missiles. We're all on board with it. So I was able to lay in some decent damage, I think. But the wraith had like a drain ability that every time it like landed a hit, which it was probably gonna do, it like had 5 extra temporary HP, which is like, damn it, like all of our players are already having enough time. Phalum actually couldn't damage the thing based on the math, which is kind of sucky, because his shield is actually just a regular shield. It's not magic or anything like that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, we need to get Phalum some good shields.
Yeah, that's true. And but we made it out, I think, with a team effort of just dogpiling the thing and just throwing as much dice at it as possible until it goes away.
Basically, Ren got some good damage in with the magic tree axe. Phalum was in place helping to do some flanking, so we kind of just had to keep wailing on this thing as best we could, because it was like resistant to pretty much everything we could do. Teeks tried to put a fireball on it, but obviously it's going to be resistant to the fireball, and I thought I would roll higher damage, but I sure did not.
There's a lot of ones being rolled that fight too.
Yep.
It was it sucked. And our powerhouse Kevo, that typically like crits and just murders people, did not. So Kevo's hilariously strong when he does pull off a crit with that magic, great pickaxe that he's wielding. It's like 70 damage or something ridiculous, like in one hit. So like if we ever could catch a break, it was gonna be good, but we did not. So that's how it goes.
Yeah, one day we will though.
Yeah. We beat the wraith. We found out that he had like a wizard storage room, and we found a chest full of a bunch of stuff that we looted, some money, some random knickknacks that are worth money. Everybody was really tuckered out after that fight, so we all decided to take a rest, right?
Yeah, basically inside that secret storage room. Like
there was a lot of debate going on, like how we're going to, rest and like where we're gonna rest, and like are we all gonna just dogpile into the room because we broke down the other door? So we're like, okay, if we broke that door, then like we have to hide in a room, right? Really fun, like dungeon crawly stuff, which I've kind of missed. I feel like lately I haven't run anything or played anything that had like heavy dungeon crawling, so it's kind of nice to go back to doing that.
I want to do a Starfinder dungeon, to be honest. That would be cool. Oh man, what about what would a superhero game dungeon be like? I guess it would just be like a tower full of supervillains.
Supervillain tower. But like, if you're not playing like a Superman character, can't you just like smash the tower down? I feel like that's the thing. It's
I don't know. Maybe they'll have hostages or something.
Oh, hostages. Yeah, that's true.
So you can't just level the building to solve your problems.
Yeah, because you're the good guys, right? Yeah.
So yeah, after we defeated that wraith, we do occasionally. I do want to also mention, because I don't think I mentioned up top, like in the cavern as we went, and we could just hear it louder as we went deeper. There was occasionally like water echoing through it, like waves. We could hear the sound coming through the tunnels.
Yeah, which is like a wave echo. Like Wave Echo Cave.
Yep, that's probably where it's got its name from. But yeah, the room we fought the wraith in, it had a couple of beds in it, which we kind of like pulled into this small storage room we all had to squeeze into. So 4 of us would be resting and 1 person would be out on watch.
Yeah.
So the way it started off with, it was Kavo who was out first. He heard some noises during the night, but otherwise pretty quiet. Bren took second watch and also heard some noises, including the water, of course, but seemed mostly fine. And then Teeks was on third, and this was a point where I wanted to try to find something for Teeks to do, just so I wasn't going to be sitting there, because, I like to be the center of attention. I was looking through my inventory, and I saw there were a couple of, like, items that I hadn't used yet. One of them was a scroll of restoration, that I was like, oh, I don't know if that could have helped with the drained thing. Probably not. But
what an ass.
I wish I had thought of this. But one of them was the statue we found a couple sessions prior that we knew the way it worked is that a non-evil creature can ask the statue one question, and the statue will answer honestly. And then after it answers that question, that creature can't ask a question again.
Oh.
Yeah, did we not explain that? Because I don't think you were there for that session.
No, I wasn't. But cool, that's cool. I like that item. That's awesome.
So yeah, it's essentially like you get one question if you're not evil, and it'll answer, and then you can't get another one. So this was a moment where I was like, oh, what can I ask? And it's like, oh, I got some backstory stuff I haven't dealt with yet. So it was essentially me just saying, okay, first I'm gonna do my perception check and all that stuff. Just make sure it's quiet. But the most important thing I want to do is I want to ask this statue a question. And I sent him the question, and I'm not going to say it because I don't want you to know it. You'll find out when Silroda finds out.
Alright, that's fine.
But he sent me a really great answer, and God, it is such a, like, ask a magic statue a question, and you get an answer, but it's an answer that's basically another question. Which Teeks was very frustrated with.
Oh, I'm excited to figure out what that is. Hopefully, like, if we're not playing with these characters later, maybe you can spill the beans. Or maybe it'll be revealed in the future. But, like, man, I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I feel like Teeks will bring it up, but not anytime soon, because they're kind of busy. But yeah, I just want to say, like, it's another thing you can do if you're giving a player private information, is you can really delve into, like, their backstory stuff. And then it gives that player a chance to decide, well, how do I want to introduce this to people? How do I want to introduce this information? Because springing things on people is really fun, but also letting them stew over something, let a problem possibly get worse. While they sit on it and try to decide how to bring it up is also kind of fun.
Nice, yeah. So that's where you did some spooky shit. But then, after the spooky shit, there was an
ooze.
An ooze. Yes, that's what it was. I think it was like might have been like a orca. How do you say that word? I think it's a color.
Yeah,
it's like a yellow ooze.
Ochre of time.
Ochre. Yeah, ochre. Yeah, that's what it is. It was an ochre ooze or ochre jelly. It jiggled into the room. With Teeks standing watch.
While Teeks was on watch. And of course, as she wakes people up, my first thought was, this thing probably has bad reflexes. I'll hit it with some electricity. And I did that, and fortunately for me, that's one of those specific kinds of damage that causes this kind of ooze to split.
Which was super funny, like, immediately made the fight harder.
Like, straight up, I didn't know that. My attack cantrips that I have are like electricity and cold, and one of them's an attack roll, one of them is a reflex save. So I was like, this thing has bad reflexes. Let's just go with that. Maybe I'll get a good hit in. Oh no, It's more.
Yeah, which is, I don't know, it was pretty funny and super and pretty cool too. I like oozes a lot. Ooze is probably one of my favorite bad guys for fantasy to use because they're just so like silly, like and terrifying at the same time. Like just this weird Claire jelly thing just jumping all over you, and you're just like, get off of me. And things just doesn't even have a face; it just jiggles. Like it's so good.
Like it's this big lump of gelatin, which seems absurd, but also it'll melt you.
Yeah, also it'll melt you. Like it's just like the simplest life form, just gigantic. It's so great. It's so great. I love it so much.
There's I'm forgetting the name of it, but the like essentially the gelatinous cube of Starfinder, assembly ooze. Okay, I have to look it up. And the art for this creature is probably the most terrifying thing to me in Starfinder, because it's like a CR1 creature, so it's not that bad. But the art they use for it is essentially like the way the creature works is it consumes metal and material, and it'll convert it into like a small piece of gear. You can roll a d8 and decide what kind of gear it converts into. So like it'll chew up some metal on a ship or something and spit out like a helmet.
Oh God, I'm looking at it now. Yes, that looks so funny.
Like the art they use for it is this ooze eating an android and just farting out a dozen helmets, and it's the scariest thing I've ever seen in my life.
That is so funny. Oh my God. I think it's so good. I love the fact that it's just being turned into helmets, like just being reduced to, it's like, yo, you're made of metal, lol. Like I'm just doing my job, friend. Like
it doesn't know, it just sees, oh, metal, num 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 num.
Yeah, it's like boop boop boop. Made my quota. Like
yeah, I might throw it up on screen if I can, but it is terrifying. It's like it's such a simplistic creature. It's just a cube. But yeah, they're really cool creatures.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. Cool.
But those don't split, I don't think. Unfortunately, the one we were fighting did. So Teeks knew better than to use her spell after that. We did have to use certain kinds of damage, but we were able to eventually fight those oozes. We did have to do some flanking, so there were a couple comments from Bren about being a jelly sandwich.
Those are pretty funny.
But after that, we were able to fight them off, finish up our rest, and some of the team seemed a bit suspicious of Teeks, who was like quickly trying to hide the statue.
Spooky shit.
Yeah, don't worry about it. But the next day, then after our rest, we woke and we explored further, coming across a new doorway that was sort of past a nearby cliff with some stairs going down it. And it was we got to a large room that had a green flame and a brazier, and across from us, on the other side of the room, there was a big old floating eyeball with tentacles that had other eyeballs on the ends of it. A beholder, of course.
Yeah.
Because this is a Dungeons and Dragons adventure, so of course it's a beholder.
Right, classic beholder. And as a classic beholder, it was crazy insane. Which Tim, I think, had a blast doing. I had a blast watching him do this crazy person. I always love when DMs have to be a crazy person because I always love it when I'm a crazy person as a DM. Yeah. You get to do and say whatever you want, and it's hilarious.
Yeah, I was saying after the game, like, he did the perfect voice for a creature that's the mouth is like 90% tongue.
Yeah, it's like it's just this big tongue inside this thing's face, and Tim just had like, it was so funny getting him to do the voice. It was just like so good. It just felt like he had a big tongue in his mouth, and it's great.
And he seemed to be like some sort of manager or some sort or something, because he said there were some charts that needed making. He needed some reports on the latest vein of a mineral. He wanted some spells from the wizard next door, which was probably that wraith that we killed. And
yeah, we tried to talk to it and trying to, not initiate combat, try to like play along essentially. But then eventually we realized that like we weren't getting anywhere with this thing, and this thing is like, a little bonkers. So we're like, let's just leave. We don't need to fight this thing. It's not bothering anybody. We're just gonna get out of here.
Yeah, it seemed like it was like picking up books as if it was reading them, but they were all like old and worn out and burned. There was nothing on them. So we eventually were trying to get out. It did seem a bit suspicious of us because Kavo, who's been excellent at talking to him, was apparently looking in the wrong direction as he was talking to someone that only the beholder could see, and Kavo pretended to have night blindness.
Night blindness.
So, we may be written up for a report or something, but the beholder let us leave. So it's just still there in its room. We will give that room a very wide berth. We will not come in there.
Which I think is super fun. Not just killing everything, just kind of just being like, well, that was weird, and just moving on with their life.
Just slowly backing away through a bush.
Yeah. But after that, we worked our way closer and closer to the sounds of the titular wave echo cave. So we found where the waves and the echoes were coming from.
True. Yeah, as we went further, we came across a sudden cliff drop, which showed a body of water coming in from below, and water would occasionally surge against the walls of this cavern, creating the sound that we heard through the rest of the tunnels. Fallon was able to tell the water was acting oddly.
And that, like, the amount of, I guess, water and stuff that was there and the way it was working, it wasn't really, making sense for this thing to come from like a lake or something like that. And we realized the water wasn't salty, so we're just like, WTF. We just chalked it up to it being magic. Who knows? We haven't figured it out, what it actually is yet. But yeah, it was cool to finally see where the echoing waves came from all this time.
And again, as we're moving through here and more of the map is being revealed, we could see that we went like basically along the bottom and then along the right side of this map, and there was still like huge chunks of it towards the left and the middle that we hadn't even come to yet.
Yeah, I'm wondering what the center is. It's probably where all the bosses or something. Like we're like circling around it. So we started going, towards the west from the top of the map and going through some smaller natural caverns that everybody got scared of because they're like, oh god, what if it floods? Because it was like a dried out like almost like water channel that was like a natural water channel, but it's dry. So I was like, there's no way that like we're gonna drown because whatever.
We'll be fine, Silrona says bravely.
Yeah, I know. My wizard, who is arguably the weakest party member, is always in the front and will cause the most amount of trouble. Because that's how I like to roll.
Kick the most doors.
Yeah, you don't become a wizard cowboy to stay in the back.
I'm kind of imagining Silrona is like trying to live as much as he can while he's in this world because he knows he'll get pulled back at any time. It's like, I don't have time to go around or find another tunnel. We're going this way.
That is true. Whenever Silrona is like in the party, the speed at which things get done is accelerated greatly.
He's got to cram as much as he can before he's off to the cowboy dimension again.
To go live a second life.
Gotta make the most of it.
Yeah, so eventually we came to another drop-off cliff area. There was like a underground almost like a small river, like a stream. And in this kind of ravine channel, this 20-foot drop, there was some hobgoblins, and on the other side there was another cliff facing that was like basically on par with the one that we were standing on, or the same elevation. And there was a drow and some more bugbears. So immediately they were like, fight, and then we, it started the combat. I think Kavo managed to jump down the 20-foot cliff by swinging his pickaxe like halfway down and just like riding it down like a badass.
Right.
My character Solrona just jumped. I was like, I did the math and I was like, wait a minute, there's no way this jump's gonna kill me. So I'm gonna pull it off, but I ended up getting like a foot injury and taking some damage.
That's Solrona's main thing. This won't kill me, so I'll do it.
Yeah. Listen, intelligence is my my largest stat, right?
But not wisdom.
But not wisdom. No, it's not. Definitely not. So man just leaps in. Leroy Jenkins himself down there. Turns out that was the right call. I think Cable got swarmed with some hobgoblins, the bugbears. We had some issues because at the top there wasn't a lot of space for people to stand, because the idea would be like, we would just stand there and just pelt them with ranged attacks, because they would have to climb up the cliff, but then there wasn't enough place for everyone to stand and get line of sight. So it was kind of like a very interesting, I would say, like combat encounter. I think like Elevation is like crazy good at making combat encounters interesting, especially with like ways where you constrain it with like line of sight and stuff like that. So it was a fun puzzle to figure out, which ended up us just yeeting ourselves down a 20-foot cliff to go fight these guys. That was the best case scenario.
Yeah. Teeks and Bren didn't go down. Fallon did leap down, managed to land on top of one of the enemies, which was pretty effective. Yeah,
which is pretty funny. So, and then right before I had to jump out of that session early, so I took my turn and I kind of we had a discussion about like there was this huge we had to pause the game to discuss like how, like, what is the range of like doing the triangulation of like, okay, this is this much height and it's like this much away this person, so what is the actual the diagonal distance, right, of that triangle, right, the right triangle. Because it's squares, turns out the way it works is whatever the longest side of the triangle is what the length of the diagonal is. So if you ever need to figure that out for some reason in like a height and elevation when you're using like a square grid, whatever the longest distance on the triangle, that's the distance from between you and that target. There you go. That's your super secret, triple secret tip of the week.
It's not exact, but if you're in a position where you just want to like arbitrate it quickly as possible, good enough.
Yeah, for real. Like, just do it and get the game going, because nobody wants that kind of math in our game. we just want to make the numbers go big, right?
It's easier if you're already online and you can just open another tab and then just do calculate hypotenuse in a different tab or whatever. But yeah, if you just want to arbitrate it, you can just take whatever is the longest between the height and the distance of whatever it may be.
Yeah, for sure. So funny enough, everyone kind of lined up in a line for the most part, and Solrona had a handy dandy lightning bolt spell on a scroll just chilling in his back pocket. I had to push Falem out the way because he was standing in my spot, so I pushed Falem out the way, took his spot, and shot out a lightning bolt spell. I think everyone failed, but I didn't roll that high in the damage. I was expecting at least like a 20 or something like that, because it is like 4d12s, which is like the average on that's 24, right? So but I ended up rolling a 15, but apparently that's what I needed. So everyone failed, and they all went down. So I got a triple kill right there, bang bang bang. And then I immediately yeeted out of there.
Right before Solrona was again caught up in a swirl of dust, there was a neighing sound, and he disappeared, leaving behind a magic horseshoe.
Yeah, so that was cool. And then I don't know what happened after that.
Well, after that, the last one ran away. After seeing all of
Nice.
its allies. And the drow that we killed once again turned into like this shapeshifter as it died. But the last bugbear, it ran off. Teeks was like trying to find somewhere to put a rope down to help herself climb, and Kavo just climbed up and helped her climb back down. Which was essentially her just hanging onto his back.
Too funny.
And then we kind of didn't really go much further from there. There was basically, like, Teeks did some detect magic stuff. We looked around a bit. We kind of figured out, like, what other tunnels we have to look for. Because there were some tunnels nearby. There was a tunnel that the bugbear ran down. So we have some more places to explore, but that is kind of where we're going to pick up at the beginning of next session, whenever that is. So kind of our cliffhanger was just, there's a whole bunch of places we can go. And that bugbear is probably going to go warn his allies, and we do know from the... I think we overheard them talking or something, that the black spider is involved.
Interesting.
So, whoever that is, they know we're coming.
Exciting! We're so excited. Actually, I'm pretty excited.
Yes.
For this to... I'm excited to get the conclusion of this. Not like I want this to end quickly, but I'm excited for the end, you know? I think it's something... people rarely get to. No offense. Like it's hard to not run a campaign for forever and then things to just kind of fall off and never resolve. I like crave the resolution of campaigns because I think it's just like kind of nice to just like end something nicely and then start fresh.
Yeah, that's the benefit of like playing with a module or an adventure path, is that it's written to have a beginning, middle, and end. So we can actually have an ending instead of just stories happening forever.
Yeah, which is it's good because then you can start new stories. You can start with new characters. You can port over old characters into new settings or new situations, and you know, just do something new with them, right? Do something new with your friends, which would be kind of cool because I think, as much as I like everyone's characters, I think we could also find way more character interactions. Like I like everybody who's playing in that game, so I'm excited to do more things with them.
Yeah, there's definitely leftover stuff we have going on too. So really excited to like get to all of those things.
Type all those sewer notes, right?
Of course. And again, like there are details that Teeks has going on that she hasn't shared yet that I don't know how or when she will, but she probably will eventually, because it's going to be a whole thing where she might need some help dealing with it.
Yeah, it'd be cool. And maybe like we can do a one shot in the cowboy dimension or something. Maybe Tim. I'll give Tim a break, and then maybe I'll DM Silrona's. Like, this is what Silrona like has been doing this entire time.
Telling you, man, you gotta have some cowboy centaurs. I need it.
Okay.
But yeah, that's the game. I don't know what else can we say about this.
Yeah, it's good. Thanks, Tim. If you're listening.
Do we want to chat about the most recent Matt Colville video for a bit? Because I think we discussed the topic on it before, so we don't have to go too deep into it. But it was mostly talking about like rewarding players.
Yes. Rewarding players. But I think specifically that like it wasn't just like how do you reward players better, but it's like how do you get players to go do the thing so you can reward them properly. I think it's like more about goals and tying goals to rewards and like specifying what the reward is, right? So his video went into, you know, the idea would be like you would pass a card or write something down or something, add it to their sheet where it's like a goal, right? And the goal would say do a thing, right? Whatever the goal is. And then you'd also just write down the tangible reward, right? Which I think is brilliant because then it's like, you know, it's not something that someone has to do, but if they want to work towards it, there's a clear like reason to do it, right? You can see like, okay, I can get a magic weapon out of this, or I'll get a new contact, or you can get, he even said giving players like abilities, right? Like actual character abilities. Like, I think that's super cool. I'm always into giving players more tools so I can ramp up the difficulty in my game. It also makes people more invested in your world because, you know, now instead of they're just showing up and like being propelled by the story, they have more agency because, you know, they have to use their in-game time to figure out like how to like to direct your character to go get these other rewards, right? These side quests. It's always like, how do you get your characters to be, or how do you get your players to be more invested in their characters and the world? Well, by giving them goals and letting them succeed at it, it makes the players like, you know, more a part of it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what I really found interesting was just letting people know what those rewards would be, because like it's different from just saying, oh, there's a big old sword at the end of this dungeon. Like it'll also be like, you get a +2 on diplomacy checks in this specific area. And I don't know if I ever would have done that or would have thought to do that, because that feels so metagamey to me. But it was interesting how it turned out for him, because it's just like, again, like you're letting people know, hey, this is the thing you will be rewarded with if you do this. This is the actions you'll be rewarded for. So probably like encouraging that sort of thing from the players to go for it. And just not like forcing them to, but just saying, hey, here's the thing. Here's what you'll get. If you want to do it, go right on ahead. If not, you know, it's just sitting there.
Yeah, exactly, right. And I think it's the same thing as like you putting, like if you want your players to go to a specific place, like you put the plot there and they have to go there, right? If your players need to interact with a specific NPC that you're cool with, give them a reason to go talk to that person, right? Or like they want your players to interact with your background or your setting or like the lore of your world, you bake that shit in, right? Like make sure that like the players need to use the stuff that you want them to use to solve the problems ahead of them or give them some tangible bonus. If it's just kind of like, you know, that's the way that you get players to really dig deep and dive in. That and like, you know, figuring out what your player wants and just giving it to them. Like Calvin wants a gaggle of do-gooders to mom over, so you just give him a gaggle of do-gooders and he's happy.
I don't know if that's yeah. I was about to say I don't know if that's true, but between Macy and Howlin' and Teeks,
it will happen all the time. I figured you out, Calvin.
Does it even have to be on purpose?
Doesn't even have to be on purpose. I'm pretty sure that translates into any sort of game too. Like you've been playing a lot of live streams of like, you know, I think Skyrim and Outer Worlds, and now you're doing Mass Effect. But there's tons of, you know, do-gooder dudes to mom over, and you probably think about that every time you make a decision.
Honestly, you are not far off, especially in Outer Worlds.
So yeah, for sure. I don't know what my thing is as a player, but definitely anytime I get to just kind of get into trouble, I'm always down for it. Like I'm a high risk, high reward kind of player. So if anything I could get myself deep into, like any sort of problem I could get myself deep into, I want to do it. Especially if you tell me don't, or like I can't, or like that's a bad idea. I'm like, nah, it'll work out.
Yeah, I would definitely, like for you, I would usually think about like combat tactics and like that bit of a dungeon crawl we did at the last Fate Seer game, which wasn't entirely a dungeon crawl. It was mostly like dungeon scenes, but I think it's awesome. I think it makes sense, as well as like you can put in, you know, more rewards. Like, hey, you gain, like literally like you gain this person as an ally because you help them out, right? I mean, video games do it all the time because it's a clear understanding of like, you put your time in, this is your reward, right? And the reason why games do it because it's just a clear, you know, line of communication. And you know, as DMs, like maybe you don't want to reveal all the secrets, but you definitely still want to let your players know that their time's valuable, right? Like what do they want to work on? And it could be something as a side quest. It doesn't even have to be like a main quest. You could even do a whole system where you just tell the players exactly what the rewards are, but like maybe not like defeat the bad guy or like ex bad guy, and you know, like that's like the main quest, and then it's like, you know, resolve this issue or something like that. And then as like the game progressive, you can add more and more goals to your character or to individual characters, and then all of a sudden everyone's trying to, you know, manage their time between their own personal stuff, their own personal goals, and the main quest, and then things just get so much more richer with all that, you know, all those different options, right?
Heck, you could even have players saying like, okay, if you help me out doing this, my goal, I'll help you out doing your goal, right? And then all of a sudden now you have like a side mission or something with one or two players, and that could be kind of fun. Do like a side session if you have time for it, right? And then when the whole group comes back together, they can all talk about how like they grew together or something crazy happened on their side mission. It's fun. Yeah.
There was also in that same video what I thought was a really interesting insight onto how different D&D systems had rewarded players and what they rewarded players for, and how that translated into the type of gameplay it ended up being. Just because like there was a really good point, because I like to tie game dev stuff to tabletop RPG stuff. There was a really good point in how you reward someone or how you reward a player specifically will lead to the behavior you want to encourage. That sort of, I think we've talked about this before like a bunch of times too, like that sort of positive reinforcement of like if your character like progresses more based on, say, you get more gold, then you're going to, as a player, lean into sessions where you get more gold, or lean into sort of things where like you go into a dungeon, you fight a bunch of monsters, because that's how you progress in this game, as opposed to being like rewarded with other more narrative things, and you're more likely to get a reward from that, so you lean into doing quests or talking to NPCs and things like that.
Yeah, like figure out like how your game, like the progression of your game, right? Like some games are like heavily based on the items your player's carrying, right? Versus like others are based on the abilities. They're specifically like, it doesn't matter what you're actually wielding. It has a small impact than like getting a new ability or getting XP or something like that, right? Some games it's like if you can draw on allies, that'll solve your problems even better, right? So figure out what your game like what's important in your game for your players to progress, and make sure that they get it because it's always, sometimes it's not, it's nice to get something that's new, but it's also, if it's not useful to the player, then like they're never going to use it. They're never going to feel like that's like a good use of their time or whatever, rewards, right?
Yeah, like admittedly for me, rewards is something that I'm still working on, trying to make them like feel special and worth it. So yeah, stuff like this is something that I like the insight of. Just I don't know, I'm always thinking of like, is this good enough for what the players are doing? And a lot of the time I'm like, oh, I didn't think of a reward for this adventure, I just thought of the whole thing. I didn't think of what you get at the end. And then I'm in the middle of the session, like on some website, on some Pathfinder random reward generator thing, trying to figure out what level is this quest I just made up. What's an appropriate reward? Is this interesting enough? What does this item do? As I'm like in the middle of combat for the reward.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, honestly, like it's one of those things where it's like it's per the table and per what you're playing as, right? Like, and also it also depends on what the last thing you gave them. Like you gave the fighter his +1 sword. If he finds another +1 sword, he's not going to care about it, right? So like when you're rewarding your players, if you give them all of the good stuff like up front, then when the next thing that they're going to get, if it's similar, then it doesn't matter to them, right? So, for instance, in the pirate game, I gave everyone's like jacked up with magic items, like their own super cool personal magic items. So I know that I can't just give you a +1 sword because no one gives a shit about a +1 sword, right? I mean, they already have like a demon axe or like flying boots or like can just be like a transforming princess or like has a sword that can, like parry magic. Like what the fuck? Like, what do you need a +1 sword for, right? But now I'm like, I'll just give you like cool one-off magic items that I just made up on the spot, like or like, oh, I'll give you like an NPC that you guys get to just have on your boat so you can like interact with them, because that's like half of the fun of playing in the pirate game is having a bunch of people on Helen's boat and having them, like, everyone just likes to talk to those people, right? Like so yeah, it all depends on it's like a fluid thing, rewards. It's always based off the last thing you gave them, and also always based off who got the stuff, right? Like Solrona doesn't care about money because all Solrona cares about is Like, he just shoots magic, right? Like, he doesn't need to buy a sword or a shield or whatever. All he needs to do is make sure that he has enough reserve stuff that if a combat goes long and his resources are down, he's still able to pump out those spells, right? And once I feel like Sorona's comfortable with it, Sorona's just like, well, I don't need the money. Give it to the fighter because we need to get people magic weapons and stuff, right? So that's the kind of thing, too. I think it depends on the character, too, right? Like, a +1 sword, you don't care about that if you're a wizard because you have noodly arms anyway. Like, what are you gonna do with that sword? Like,
yeah, I did have that a bit. Like, for me, all I really needed was like health potions, just so I could save my spell slots for other people.
Yeah, right. So it's a difficult thing. Rewards. It's definitely fluid. I think that usually base game stuff isn't enough. Like, whatever comes with your stuff, you're gonna have to start making up some of your own stuff as a DM and giving it to your players. Even if it's like a name change, even if it's like a background thing, like a narrative thing with that +1 sword. Like, yeah, sure, it's just a +1 sword, but it's like, I don't know, it's the sword of the last king or something like that. And so, like, you having the last king's sword, it means that you might have a claim to the throne or something crazy like that. So when you find that thing, you're like, oh god, this is awesome, right? Like, mechanically it's just a regular, it's a better sword, but then narratively it's like important.
Yeah, definitely want to tie rewards to narrative stuff as well. I think that might be all we have to say on that. It was like a quick kind of tangent just because I was thinking about that video. It'll be linked below if you want to check it out. As well, check out all the stuff on the Coville channel because there's a lot of really good advice there. That is, applicable in a lot of practical situations.
Yeah, definitely.
But I think that might be it for this episode.
Yeah.
So yeah, again, I think that the game we played it's been really fun so far. So I'm really excited to see more of this dungeon. Kind of makes me want to make my own dungeon. So I don't know, maybe I'll do that and throw someone into it somehow. But of course,
that'll be exciting.
If we ever talk about that, it'll for sure be on this channel. Again, if you want to see more, if you want to listen to more of these episodes, just if you're on YouTube, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell so you get a notification every time we upload a new episode and every time we go live. I've been doing weekly gaming streams. I guess I'm up to 3 now. We've got Outer Worlds on Thursdays. So if you want to see me fight my way through the rest of Monarch, I think I'll be able to finish that, or mostly finish it by next session. There's a lot to do on Monarch. I know I spent a lot of time on there. We've got Skyrim on Fridays. Last episode, I got a mod that adds a new companion, Inigo, the Khajiit, and he's got like thousands of lines of dialogue. He actually got a conversation out of Lydia, which was amazing. Because I've been trying to do that for weeks. So if you want to see more of that and more of whatever I do in that game, I'm probably going to be side questing for a bit as I try to reacclimate myself, because I was in Soulslime for a couple of sessions there. So be sure to check that out. And we've got Mass Effect now on Sundays. By the time this podcast goes up, it will have been a couple episodes of Mass Effect. Still on the Citadel, which is one of my favorite areas in the game. So be sure to check that out if you're into the game. It looks very nice on the PC, so definitely you want to go check that out. I'm excited to meet Garrus and become his best friend.
Yes, Garrus, the best boy.
Yeah. Best video game character, best boy, best everything. So yeah, be sure to go check those things out. And of course, I want to give some shout outs. Those shoutouts including a shout out to the Field Guide to Umfokane, a unique Lancer setting that you can add to your game and to your CompCon to get more, parts and things for mechs that you can use to customize. You can also check out the write-up of the, of the setting itself. It's got a really interesting backstory that I think as you just read it, you'll be very inspirational for those kind of stories you can tell. So be sure to go check that out. And if you're into Lancer, check out Celeste's Lancer RPG NPC guides, which have different guides to how you can use different Lancer NPCs, as well as adventures that focus on them. Really helpful for a first-time GM in Lancer. Shout out to the Replay podcast, which is a great podcast that features different, unique and diverse guests throughout the gaming spaces, whether it's video gaming, tabletop gaming, all sorts of things like that. And, of course, shout out to the Untold Stories Project, where I am there every week, for the most part, playing Mutants and Masterminds, and I've been in some one-shots. They have a Suicide Squad game coming up later this month, so be sure to go there and check out when that is. And also, of course, our Nether War campaign, which is going to be concluding soon, which I'm really sad about. But, Ramon, I wanted to tell you about this game specifically, because I know you like hearing the little details about this game. And I also know that you, as a GM, like to give me a bunch of people to care about, because you know how invested I get into NPCs. And, that threat of danger to them occasionally, that something terrible might happen to them, and I don't know what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Well, last session was pretty rough. I'm just gonna say that.
Ooh. Oh, if you want to see Calvin sweat, I'm pretty sure.
You want to see some tragedy times 3, then be sure to go check out that game. There's a lot of great character stuff going on there. I had some great character moments, some that really got me. So, a lot of apparent character development that happened over the weeks. And it's coming up to a year of that game, so I think that'll be around when it concludes. We are going through the 6 chapters of the adventure path, but with a whole bunch of our own stuff in the middle. So I think by next week, actually no, not even next week, because we still have to deal with our body swap situation and rescuing one of our characters' boyfriend or fiance from their evil father-in-law. So, yeah, I guess
fun stuff.
No, they're fiance because the marriage hasn't happened yet. So yeah, it's gonna be fun stuff. I got to deal with not being myself for a bit. So if you want to check that out, it's over on the Untold Stories Project channel. Lots of love to those guys, and I think that's about it.
Oh man, this outro gets longer and longer every time we do it, I'm pretty sure.
It's because I keep rambling about USP.
It's always fun. But if you stuck all the way to the end, thank you so much. And there's always the special little treat that you get to experience right at the end of the podcast.
Definitely. So again, thanks for listening. And I don't know, Ramon, is there anything else left to say in this episode?
Yes, Calvin, you know what to say.
Oh, of course, that thing I say every week for the 76th time?
Yes.
Looking forward to the 100th, of course. But everybody out there, just remember to keep on winning with dice, and we'll see you next week.
See you guys.